Hello, everyone, and welcome to Women That Shred. It might be confusing for some people because I'm back to back 2 Wednesdays in a row, but that was my fault with scheduling. I will take the blame here. But I am excited to have our guest, Tami. Now, Tami, I'm not going to pronounce your last name correctly, I bet. So I'll let you.
I'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah. What's
It's Wollensak.
Wollensak. Oh, right.
Yeah.
So Tami and I are actually coworkers. We work at NAF together. But I think what Tami does is really amazing because it's very niche and it's something that is really needed and not really talked about. So I'm really thrilled to be able to have Tami on and talk about this subject because, divorce can be something taboo, just the word. But in this case, Tami helps divorcees that are going through the whole breakup process, and if you have a home, what to do, in order to divide up the equity, all of those things that I think many of us could have used her if when we were getting divorced. I know I could have used someone like Tami. So Tami, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself and why this particular subject? Like, why are you so passionate about this? Because it is very niche what you do.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks so much for having me. I'm very grateful and honored to be on your show here. And I think it's such an important topic and I am very passionate about it. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is I went through it. So I went through it myself and, twice actually. So let's get that out there. But the second time was more, we had more assets and we had a home. And I realized that there was a really big gap between mortgage lending and family law that wasn't really being filled. And divorce attorneys, mediators, those type of professionals aren't really out there to know this stuff. That's not their lane. Their lane is really to get you through the legal process, and they do that really well. But when it comes to your financials and real estate and understanding how the division of the marital home works, there's a big gap. And a lot of times I was seeing settlements, since I've been in the industry so long, I was seeing settlement agreements coming into the office saying, one person is going to keep the house, they're going to refinance it within this amount of time. And they couldn't because they weren't setting themselves up. They didn't understand the timelines that need to be met, the qualifications, the criteria. So helping them fill that gap prior to signing their settlement agreement is really important to make for a better settlement. At the end of the day, they say that it's the F word, fair in divorce, but you really want it to be equitable. So, and understanding that you can be creative on your own if you can come up with some of these options and understand what they are.
So then let me ask you this, because you talked about it, in the settlement. So for instance, if I know that I have to drop a settlement, should I be coming to you first then? So that because you just said in the settlement, a lot of times it'll say that they have to sell the home or refinance. And I know for me personally, I didn't find out until my divorce attorney was like, you're not on the title deed or anything of this home. And I was like, what? They're like, we called the county and you're not anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? I pay the mortgage. Like, I write the check. He's like, it doesn't matter. And so then I realized that I was already was set up in a bad position. And, hey, Andrew, he's actually in Canada. We were talking about how someone reached out to Tami from Canada. But the thing is my ex and I are in a great place. I'm actually going to see him tomorrow, moving our daughter in for college. We have a great relationship. But at the time, I was pregnant with my second, or I just had my second. So in his mind, he's like, oh, it's a hassle for you to go to closing. You've got 2 little ones to take care of. And I was like, okay. And thinking I'm not working. And so I just was naively going along with it. And then here comes my attorney and it was like, you realize that you have absolutely no right to that house technically.
So that's interesting that that was worded to you like that, because even if you aren't on title or the mortgage, it could have still been a marital property depending on when it was purchased and how it was purchased. That's a legal question. I won't get
Yeah,
into
I mean,
the
I still got
logistics
like
of.
it was fair. Like I
Yeah,
still got
yeah,
like part of what
yeah,
would have been, you know what I mean? Like we
sure.
made it happen, but
Yeah,
it just complicated things, and it also made me feel not empowered at all. And the irony
yeah,
of me now being in the mortgage industry, totally understanding all of this,
yes,
it's
yes,
very ironic to me that like at the time
yeah,
I just was clueless. So yeah, so
for
should they be
sure.
coming to you first then before they drop
Yeah.
that settlement?
I get a lot of people kind of in contemplation stage. I mean, I have people that come to me. Sometimes they haven't even told their spouse this is the direction that they want to go, and they're really just trying to gather information
Mm-hmm.
on what that means for them. I would say the majority of my clientele is female, probably just because in a marriage, you kind of divide and conquer, as you pointed out. Like we're kind of doing your thing. He was in charge of maybe the more of the financial part of your relationship.
Yeah.
There's no shame in that. And a lot of times, I think from what you're saying is, you felt that, you felt like, oh, I should have been more involved. I should have known more, but it's very common. So a lot of
Yeah.
times I have
Plus,
people.
nobody gets married thinking they're going to end up getting divorced, and
Right,
so they need to like do things
exactly.
like in my world. I was like, I'm going to be married forever, and I thought if something happens
Yes.
to my ex, then I'll get the home anyways. Not realizing now it goes to the estate if I'm not on the, you know what I mean? Like all these
Right,
things
right,
too. But
right, right,
at the
right,
time, I just
right,
trusted it, and most people
right.
do that.
For sure. And I find that a lot. And so when they're coming to me, really trying to understand what that means, because a lot of times the marital home is one of the biggest assets that the couple has together. And so they want to understand, well, there's a lot of emotion tied to it. Sometimes, the mom, so to speak, wants to keep it because they want to keep the kids in the house. They have a community around them. They're not looking at it as a piece of real estate like an investment. It's their home. They built memories there. They have their kids there. Their kids go to school. And so they're scared, and they want to understand, how do they keep the house? Maybe they haven't even been in the workforce, right? And they've been told like, well, you can't qualify to keep the home anyway, so
I
you're not going to get the
know.
house,
Yeah.
right?
I think
And
most of the time they're like led to believe that they can't afford to keep it. But I think like
yeah,
we forget that at the end of the day, most people want to keep it because it's the kids' home and that's where they
yes,
grew up and they want to keep some kind of stability for
yeah,
their kids.
hmm,
So I think that even more so, like if there's a way for these parents, one of them to keep the home for the kids' sake, like I think then
yeah,
yeah, you got to
yeah.
try.
Yeah, so that's what, kind of I do and specialize in now is, whether there's whether there's a transaction or not, what needs to happen is they need to understand what all of the options look like for them, and what, they can go to the negotiation table with, so that they're empowered to make
Yeah.
some of these decisions, right? And so that they can clearly say, I'm going to keep the house, and here's my offer, and here's how, that I can do this because I have, this amount, and I get paid for my job, even if it's a part-time job, we may be able to utilize that as income stream. I'm going to be receiving child support, or I'm going to be receiving spousal support. What do those timelines need to be in order for, as a mortgage lender, for that
Mhm.
to be qualified income? And then, sometimes it's just a matter of setting themselves up for what the timelines need to be and how those need to be met, so that it's not there's a deadline, right? So everybody feels comfortable because they know, well, in 6 months, I'll be able to do this because this, and this is going to happen. And so there's a plan in place, so that it doesn't create this adversity, right? Because the other side is like, well, you can't qualify to do
Right.
that. They've already talked to somebody. They clearly have a plan in place. So,
Yeah. And I think that's like another thing that's really important is that it's that empowerment piece because I know once again, I was very naive. I hadn't really been in the workplace. I got married young, started having kids young. So I was that stay-at-home mom. Granted, I was very, I was paying all the bills, very responsible, knew what the money that was coming in and out, all of those things. So I was at least privy to that, because I had a lot of friends that had no idea about their finances, zero.
A lot. Yeah.
But also what happens too, and once again, my ex and I are in a great place, but at the time, and divorce is just hard on anybody, right?
Right.
And I know for him, like, he made me feel like I wasn't, I had to listen to what he had to say. Like I didn't know better, right? So he was basically telling me, you won't be able to do this, you won't be able to do that, kind of scaring me a little bit. But once again, it was like he was hurt and all of those things. And I don't want
people are very different.
Yeah, it's very So it's like almost like an act of desperation of trying to get me to be like, don't go,
Yeah.
So I totally understand, but unfortunately, it made me feel like I had just no power and had no clue, and that's a really tough spot to be in, because I knew once. Looking back, hindsight, I had a lot of power, and there was a lot that I could have learned and educated myself on and been in a better position. And so that's where I think that's what happens too, is a lot of these couples, whether it's the husband or the wife or whatever, like one of them's usually led to believe that they can't, they don't have the ability to do something when they really do.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot more information out there now than when I got divorced as well. From just, all the wonderful podcast episodes. And, there's a lot of professionals out there that can help guide people and give them all of their options. And I always say to surround yourself with professionals. Do not rely on your attorney to know everything. It is not their job to be your financial advisor, your therapist, your mortgage professional, people just say
even though we pay them a lot to where we feel like they should be all those
they should, but you would pay less if you would incorporate other professionals into the mix and then give them the information and say, look, I talked to a mortgage professional, and this is how, how I can keep the house. This is how I can keep the house. If we do this, this, and this, maybe we should offer that to the other side.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's being proactive. And I think a lot of people don't realize they can be proactive. They think it's once it's in the settlement, then they go and figure out if it's going to be able to work or not. But I love that you're letting us know that, no, you're better off in the beginning, coming to someone like yourself and asking those questions. I think it is, a touchy subject.
Very.
Yeah, because I feel like even, people talk about prenups and so forth. I mean, I feel like this is even a conversation to be had with your spouse, even if you're not even down that path of hey, if for whatever reason, can we agree on, making sure that we seek a mortgage professional about our home. That's a tough one. But
I work a lot with and I've seen a lot more couples scheduling, which is really, I think, positive, right? I see couples that meet with me together, and it's always a better solution. If you can come up what's best for you and your family, that's the right answer.
Yeah.
That's the right answer, right? You're not pitting each other. It's not one side against the other. If you can come up with all of your negotiations outside the court system and then figure it all out and tell somebody, this is what we feel is going to work. Does this meet the legal, whatever in your state? Then you're going to, first of all, you're going to save a lot of money, time, and energy. And second of all, it's going to be a better solution for you and your co-parent, right? Moving forward, it can really preserve your relationship with your children's co-parent.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Parent, right?
The respect remains there and continues. And I feel like the respect between each other is so important, because then you're essentially role modeling that to your kids. And I will say that my kids, they understand how important respect is, because they know that my ex and I respect each other. We never talk poorly about one another. We never talk poorly in front, like towards each other. And so then my kids are learning how important it is to be able to respect someone, even if there are differences, even if, you do, fall in love with them. I mean, I still love my ex and I still care about him and all of those things. But, as a husband, it just was different. Right.
Absolutely.
But I feel like it lends to all of it. Right. It's not just about the home. It's about the example that you're setting to the rest 100%. Of the family. And, it's also, because if you're adding more stress into the process, then guess what? Usually that stress is taken out. It
trickles down to your children
or your family or other family members or work. So I feel like it's so important to acknowledge that this is just more than, figuring out how the house is going to stay put. It's more about, everybody's sanity and, just well-being for everyone.
I also believe tremendously in what you're saying, because I went through that as well. And we went through mediation, and, we sat down and figured it out together. And I believe 100%, because of the way we went through our divorce, is the reason that we have such a great relationship today, as you do. Right. And we do as same thing, like moving your kids to college and stuff like that together. Having holidays together, birthday parties together, like all the things that you're still going to do. Believe it or not, when you have children together, you're in each other's lives for the rest of your lives. What do you want that to look like?
Yeah. And I can tell you that, like, I feel so grateful and just so blessed that just the family dynamic between my ex and my kids is fantastic. There's something about that. Like, there's no stress, there's no drama. And, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're lucky. I'm like, yeah, but I had to work towards that. So my ex, it wasn't like, even though I was the one that initiated the divorce and wanted it, it still was, work for me to still keep that together too. And for him as well. So I get that it's not simple, but at the end I can attest to this, and so can you, that it's worth it when you see
absolutely worth it,
how your kids are and how you guys, can do everything together. Because divorce is a tough one. And most people, what they miss out on is a lot of that family stuff, because, this other partner, spouse can't see the other person, or they can't be in the same room. And so
it's so awkward.
That was something that I kind of was mourning when I got divorced. I was mourning the fact of, like, did I just lose like that family unit? And luckily I didn't. And so it all starts in the beginning. So if you can, from the start in the process, do it in a way that's respectful, then you most likely will end up in a situation where you're respectful for the rest of your lives. But it's a tough one, but
it's definitely not easy, but definitely, as you said, worth it. You're going to have your ups and your downs, and you're not always going to agree. And it's not like you're going to sit around and sing Kumbaya, but once you get there to the other side and can support each other, you will see it in your children. When you're not like, well, the kids aren't home at 3 p.m. because it says it in my settlement, and in our divorce decree, stuff crazy.
I know I still have friends that still have to like revert back to their decree and still have to like go to court and be like, my spouse did not follow the rules of the whatever. Like, I honestly, I can't even imagine that. We had a very flexible type of situation. Once again, it's like not for everybody, but I just feel like what you're doing at least is helping the start in a good place. So I really appreciate that. And I think more people should be talking about it, and more people, especially with the divorce rate being so high that it is. I'm assuming that even though you're so niched, you still get plenty of business. Some people might be like, oh, well, you're so niche. You're basically like, like shooting yourself in the foot by, and I'm like, and I
I've
feel
gotten
like,
a lot
no.
of criticism. Yeah, I've gotten a
Really?
lot of criticism from bosses over the years about how I should diversify.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, I
Yeah.
know there's enough people, and there's such limited resources when it
Yes.
comes to this. Most mortgage professionals, if you ask them, certain questions on certain guidelines that are very divorce specific, they wouldn't know. They're just
Yeah.
like, once you get a divorce, bring me your settlement agreement and then I'll help you with your refi. No, that's
No.
too late. You really need to help them through consulting. And sometimes, no, it doesn't end up in a transaction. That's how we get paid, right? As mortgage professionals. That's okay, because I can guarantee you the people that I've helped that sometimes are like, at the end of the day, they're like, well, I'm just going to rent or something.
Yeah.
They remember me.
Yeah. And they'll refer you to those.
Later.
Yeah. And they'll refer you out. And
like,
yeah.
It's definitely a goodwill thing, too. It's just, I just feel like I'm helping.
No, you are. And I want to like reiterate when you just said that, loan officers, they don't get paid until it's like an actual transaction. And so I know a lot of people hesitate to go to a loan officer because they think that they're going to have to pay some kind of fee just to have you give them advice or consult them. And we have to let everybody know that no, it's like they do not charge you anything until like there's an actual transaction that occurs.
Right. And I tell people, if I could charge, I would love to, because I spend a lot of time in consulting. But the reason that I don't, and the reason that I can't, is because it could be considered disparate treatment, right, Raquel? Like, if I have a first-time home buyer that comes to me and I'm consulting them, which you do a lot of the same things, what it means to buy a house, what the fees are, all the things, and then I charge a divorcing homeowner, I could technically lose my license, right? Yeah. Like, it could be considered disparate treatment, and it's a really sticky road to go down. I do this because I find I'm passionate about helping people make good decisions and make for a much more productive settlement agreement so that they can move forward and start healing.
Yeah.
And if there is a transaction, they usually use me just because they're very indebted to.
And the trust is there. They trust you, and you've been through it. Like, that's, I think, what's so important is that, I had worked for a different mortgage company in the past, and I had left, but I had a friend who was going through divorce, and they said, I need you to refer me to a loan officer. And knowing that that person was a divorcee, I referred them to a loan officer that I had worked with that had gone through a divorce, tends to do divorcees. And so I referred her to her, and she was so grateful, but it's because I knew that she was going to be able to have someone that she could kind of talk to and relate. And because I knew that she needed kind of that support too. And she needed someone that was going to be able to totally understand what she was going through.
Right.
And so it worked out perfectly. But yeah, it was more about the trust, the personality, as opposed to, oh, is this person a really fantastic loan officer? You know what I mean? Like, it was more about, how is this person going to feel during this process?
Feel supported, feel not pushed, not rushed. Some of these divorces it's a very long sales cycle in a sense. Yeah. Like, I might be talking to somebody today, and they might not be ready to make some of these decisions for at least a year later, and that's a long time to kind of get back in touch with them and say, so now what's going on? What went on in your last mediation session? What's everybody talking about now? Do you have different figures? Are you thinking, sometimes they start out thinking they want to keep the house. And then as we start working through the numbers and we start looking at it and we start looking at what their options are, like, oh, that's not what I want at all. I can't do that. That doesn't make sense for me financially. And now I'm going to be stressed because I'm signing up for something that's going to create financial havoc for me post-divorce.
Yeah. And that's important. Yeah. And that's important too, is not to have that stress post-divorce. Cause when, it is already going to be stressful, why add more stress to something if you don't have to? So I just believe it's a conversation that I am so happy that we were able to have, and hopefully
thanks so much.
people will reach out to you with any questions. So if people do want to reach out, what's the best way they can do that?
So the best way is I have a website. It's takeorleavethehouse.com.
Oh, I love that. It's like Love It or List It on HGTV.
Well, it's actually TamiWollensak.com, but I have I don't know, a different URL. And I just thought it was easier.
That's fantastic. Talk about branding. Remember, I love a good brand. So I love that.
Takeorleavethehouse.com. I have a scheduling link on there to schedule a 30-minute consult with me. You can jump on my calendar at any time, schedule time with me, and people do. And if for some reason you're really under the gun and you need some information a lot sooner, just email me. My email and my phone number and all my contact information is there.
Perfect. Yeah. And also, I'm assuming that you have a really good network of referrals of people, because there's probably people that are going to come to you and they don't even have an attorney. They have nothing else. So that would be, you know, really nice for people too, to have you obviously you're going to refer people to.
I have a fabulous network of people, and I really have the majority of my network. I try to really are in alignment with kind of the way what we've been talking about, are very family focused, right? They're very family focused, and it can help you get through this process in a non-adversarial way. And I think that's really what's important. What's most important in a divorce is picking the right type of professionals, because if you pick a professional that wants to fight, you're going to get a fight. Unfortunately, that's the way it is.
Yeah. And that, people do that. They'll purposely, hire an attorney that's, known as a shark.
Yeah.
And so, because that's what they want. And I get that, and to each his own. But I feel like you're definitely someone that is coming at it of like, hey, let's do what we can to make this like harmonious for everybody and great for everyone. Like, I can tell you're not out to like, to screw anyone over, excuse my French, you know what I mean? But a lot of these divorces, really, that's what the other person wants. So
I really try to guide people, especially if I'm getting them early or on in the process, is to help them and say, look, outside of the house thing, if you don't mind me giving you a little bit of guidance about the process itself, and they appreciate that as well. So
I know there's gonna be plenty of people that are gonna need someone like yourself. I know that. I like to be more guided and have someone that I feel like I can be friends with. That's just my personality, and everybody has their different ways of communicating. But you're definitely someone that, like, if I do end up in a second divorce, no, I'm not even like close to. I'm still single. I'm not even close to that. But if for whatever reason I do joke around, I'll be like, "Oh, am I going to meet my future ex-husband?"
I'm terrible now. I'm so enmeshed in the world that I'm like, when I see people getting married, I'm like, my next client. It's awful. I know, right?
But I feel like you kind of have to make light of it and make fun of it, because then you end up like really like super cynical and jaded.
Right. It's a very dark subject also. And I do see a lot of times people, I have to be very empathetic, because people are hurting, right? Absolutely. They're in a lot of pain, and they're very stressed, and they're very, worried about their futures. So I think there has to be a really good balance between good information and being empathetic. It's not a transaction to them. It's their life and it's their home.
Yeah, agreed. So that's why you're a very special human being, Tami.
Thank you, Raquel.
And did you see Greg hopped on?
Yeah. Hi, Greg.
A lot of people will watch the replay. But I just want to reiterate that if anyone wants to reach out to Tami, I know Dal put up her social handles on there, but you can also find her. I'm sure if they just Google your name, your website will pop up.
Yeah. If you can spell it. But
I mean, it's bad enough if I couldn't pronounce it, let alone spell it. So
right. Takeorleavethehouse.com. Easy.
There you go. Yeah. I'm sure if you write like Tami, divorce mortgage, I'm sure you'll be up there too.
Yeah. Divorce
And
mortgage,
then
for sure.
Jody just popped in and said Tami is the best. Yes.
Oh,
I'm excited
so
that
nice.
you and I finally got to have like a real one-on-one
great.
conversation.
It's been awesome.
Yeah. So I look forward to hopefully, like, now I feel, knowing exactly what it is that you do, I feel like I could like send you people at this point
right.
now. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I mean, I knew what you did, but like, just having it explained more in depth, and just knowing that you really are trying to help people and you're so passionate about it makes me trust you 100%. So
thank
you have my
so
vote.
Much, Raquel. You're amazing. You're so great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone that popped in and is going to pop in.
And for saying hi.
Yeah, and so you and I are off to go meet with our ex-husbands in the next couple of days.
And our kids.
To move them in. So we're two good success stories, which is always nice.
Absolutely.
So,
I tell people you will get to the other side.
Yeah.
You will. There is light at the end of the tunnel, for sure.
Yes, there is, for sure. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday.
Thanks so much.